Peace, Israel, and Yah bless. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. Today's lesson is entitled Governor Solomon. Governor Solomon sinned with strange wives. Once again, today's lesson is entitled Governor Solomon sinned with strange wives. So once again, brace yourselves, tighten up your jaws, do not turn to the left or to the right, or you will get hit in the mouth. We are to walk the straight and narrow way of the Most High's commandments. Now, there have been some previous lessons that I have just finished doing pertaining to strange wives and mixing with strangers. Some of you have looked at that. Some of you are guilty of this thing. And you're to teach your sons and your daughters not to do it. So now what we're going to look at, we're going to look at Governor Solomon, who sinned in this thing. And because of him doing this, it caused the Most High to tear the kingdom and separated the nation, because he went contrary to instruction as it pertained to marrying strange wives. All right. Let us start off at 1 Kings chapter 9. 1 Kings chapter 9. And we'll read verse 1 through 9. All right. Let's go through these scrolls and see what the Most High have said and what he has commanded pertaining to these strange wives, and what he would do to the governor, our leaders, the seed of David, should they walk contrary to his instruction. All right. 1 Kings chapter 9, we will read verse 1 through 9. And verse 1 of chapter 9 of 1 Kings read, And it came to pass, when Solomon had finished the building of the house of Yah, and the king's house, and all Solomon's desire which he was pleased to do, verse 2, that Yah appeared unto Solomon a second time, as he had appeared unto him at Gibeon. Verse 3, And Yah said unto him, I have heard thy prayer and thy supplication that thou hast made before me. I have hallowed this house which thou hast built, to put my name there forever, and my eyes and my heart shall be there perpetually. Verse 4, And if thou wilt walk before me as David thy father walked, in integrity of heart and in uprightness, to do according to all that I have commanded thee, and will keep my statutes and my judgments, verse 5, that I will establish the throne of thy kingdom upon Israel forever, as I promised to David thy father, saying, There shall not fail thee a man upon the throne of Israel. So once again, this is speaking to the covenant that the Most High made with David, that one of David's sons will always be before him on the throne in Israel, provided the nation of Israel is established in that land. Verse 6, But if ye shall at all turn from following me, ye or your children, and will not keep my statutes, I will not keep my commandments and my statutes which I have set before you, but go and serve other gods and worship them. Verse 7, Then will I cut off Israel out of the land which I have given them, and this house which I have hallowed for my name will I cast out of my sight, and Israel shall be a proverb and a byword among all nations. So it was specifically instructed to Solomon as well as David that if at all should they stray to the right or to the left from following the Most High's laws, that the Most High would cast them out of the land. He would destroy the house. He would pollute his heritage. He will scatter the house of Israel to the four corners of the earth, and we will be a proverb and a byword in the midst of the nations. No matter where you go, Israel, there's a name for you, a derogatory term or a name for us, no matter where on the earth we go. This is part of that curse. Verse 8, And at this house, which is high, everyone that passes by it shall be astonished, and shall hiss, and they shall say, Why hath Yah done thus unto this land and to this house? Verse 9, And they shall answer, Because they forsook Yah their strong one, who brought forth their fathers out of the land of Egypt, and have taken hold upon other gods, and have worshipped them and served them. Therefore hath Yah brought upon them all this evil. So the Most High brought evil unto the house of Israel for walking contrary to his law. Didn't call Satan for it. Pay attention to that. Moreover, it says here clearly that because at the beginning of verse 9, and they shall answer because they forsook the God or the strong one of their fathers who brought them out of Egypt. If JC didn't bring us out of Egypt, and he did not, he is not God. Just to reiterate that point. Now, so we clearly understand here where the Most High was telling Solomon that he is to walk after the statutes, judgments, and precepts that he was given. And should he not do it, that he would tear up this house. He would get us out of the land that he gave us, or he promised to our forefathers, and scatter us to the four corners of the earth. So this is a warning to Solomon. Now, let's move over 2 chapters. The 1 Kings, and we'll go to chapter 11. 1 Kings, chapter 11. And we will read verse 1 through verse 13. All right. 1 Kings, chapter 11. And we will deal with verse 1 through 14. Once again, this lesson is Governor Solomon sinned with strange wives. Verse 1 of 1 Kings chapter 11. But King Solomon loved many strange women, together with the daughter of Pharaoh, women of the Moabites, the Ammonites, the Edomites, the Zidonians, and the Hittites, of the nations concerning which Yah said unto the children of Israel, ye shall not go in to them, neither shall they come in unto you, for surely they will turn away your hearts after their gods. Solomon clave unto these in love. So Governor Solomon walked against the Most High statutes, judgments, and precepts. We were instructed that we were not to marry the daughter of strangers. We were not to marry them. We were not to give our sons to their daughters or their daughters to our sons. Solomon here is clearly in violation of this. Verse 3. And he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart. Verse 4. For it came to pass, when Solomon was old, that his wives turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not perfect with Yah his strong one, as was the heart of David his father. David did sin against the Most High in the fact that he killed a man. He had a man killed, so he was just as guilty as doing it. He had Uriah the Hittite killed, so he could marry the man's wife. So David was in violation of this. And the Most High punished David for it, though David did acknowledge his faults. But even if you acknowledge your faults, you still are held accountable. So with the Most High, it's not a matter of you committing a sin, asking for forgiveness, and getting away scot-free. You have to pay for your errors. And David certainly paid for his errors, and he paid dearly. And so did the house of Israel pay because of his error, because David was the governor, he was the leader. So here, as we read in verse 4, where Solomon's heart was turned away, and it was not perfect like David his father was. Though David transgressed by killing Uriah the Hittite and marrying that man's wife and committing adultery by laying down with that man's wife before he killed him, what David did not do, David never turned his heart after idols. Okay, and that was the grave, the egregious error of Solomon, David's son. He married the strange wives, and his heart was turned away, and he started worshiping the gods of his wives. Verse 5. For Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Zidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. Verse 6. And Solomon did evil in the sight of Yah, and went not fully after Yah, as did David his father. So it's an evil thing to walk after idols. Verse 7. Then did Solomon build an high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, in the hill that is before Jerusalem, and for Molech, the abomination of the children of Ammon. Verse 8. And likewise did he for all his strange wives, which burnt incense and sacrificed unto their gods. So what Solomon had done, he had built eminent high places to all the wives, all the gods, or the idols of his many strange wives. Verse 9. And Yah was angry with Solomon, because his heart was turned from Yah, the strong one of Israel, which had appeared unto him twice. So the Most High had appeared unto this man, who was the richest of all men and the wisest of all men that sat upon that throne. Okay? And there would be none before Solomon, and none before him that would be as wise, and there will be none after him that would be as wise or as wealthy. So this is a man who is wealthy and full of wisdom, and the Most High had appeared unto him twice. Yet, in spite of this, he still walked contrary to the Most High's instruction. Verse 10. And I commanded him concerning this thing. So the Most High told him about this very thing, that he should not go after other gods. But he kept not that which Yah had commanded him. Okay, or which Yah had commanded. Verse 11. Wherefore Yah said unto Solomon, for as much as this is done of thee, and thou hast not kept my covenant and my statutes which I have commanded thee, I will surely rend the kingdom from thee, and will give it to thy servant. The Most High took the kingdom from Solomon in the fact that he would not take it from Solomon because of the faithfulness of his father David. So the Most High allowed Solomon to remain on the throne for all of his days. But his son Rehoboam, Solomon's son, the Most High took the kingdom from him. But for David's sake, did the Most High allow Solomon to reign all the days of his life. So I want you to understand, when you take a hold of the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts, and you do them, there's a few things involved with that. Number one, it prolongs your days. That's number one. Most High will keep his angel before you. He will protect you from evildoers. Not only that, it certainly goes on to your seed for what you have done. Okay, so the Most High can have mercy upon your children based upon your faithfulness to his law, statute, judgments, and precepts. So Solomon is a beneficiary of what his father David had done. Okay, and I want you to understand, Rehoboam also faced the Most High's wrath as far as the kingdom being taken from him because of what his father Solomon had done. So do understand that what you are currently doing affects your children and their children after them. So we are to consider that, because the Most High will do this 3 and 4 generations down the line. And if you continue to mess up, it just continues and multiplies. Verse 12. Notwithstanding, in thy days I will not do it for David thy father's sake, but I will rend it out of the hand of thy son. So the Most High is telling Solomon, because of your father, for your father's sake, I'm not going to take this kingdom from you, but I'm going to take it from your son Rehoboam. Verse 13. Howbeit, I will not rend away all the kingdom, but will give one tribe to thy son, for David my servant's sake, and for Jerusalem's sake, which I have chosen. So the Most High said, okay, I'm going to tear this kingdom from your son Rehoboam. I'm not going to just cast you out right now. I'm going to allow you to sit on this throne for the rest of your days. But I'm only doing this for your father's David's sake. Also, I'm not going to take the whole kingdom away from you. I'm not going to take the whole kingdom away from your father David, because I promise that his seed will always be before me. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave one tribe for him. And so Rehoboam was able to still have rulership over the tribe of Judah. All right. And Jeroboam had the 10 tribes up in the north. Okay, so you kind of understand that. All right. Now, so we understand clearly here that Solomon had built eminent high places to his strange wives. He should not have married them in the first place. We were commanded not to do this. Okay, and these women led his heart astray. Solomon built houses onto the eminent and eminent high places onto the gods of his wives. Not only that, he also burnt incense onto them and walked after them, an egregious sin. And because of what the leadership had done, the seed of David, starting with Solomon, the Most High took the house of Israel and he tore it and split it into two separate nations. The north, Samaria, Israel, and the south, Judah, Jerusalem. And so this is how the two houses, the house of Israel, was split in two. Why was it split? Because the Governor Solomon, the leadership, chose to walk contrary to the Most High's instruction. So once our leadership goes astray, the whole house becomes in disarray, as the Most High had promised that he would split us up and ship us out of the land should our leadership go astray, i.e., the house of David. Now, let's go to Nehemiah, the book of Nehemiah, and we'll go to chapter 13. We'll read verse 1 through 3. The book of Nehemiah. The book of Nehemiah, chapter 13, verse 1 reads, On that day they read in the book of Moses in the audience of the people, and therein was found written that the Ammonite and the Moabite should not come into the congregation of Yah forever. So if you are thinking that God loves everybody, we are all God's children, and we're all going to be in the congregation of the Most High, you couldn't be more incorrect about that. Okay, Moabites, Ammonites, Canaanites cannot ever get into the congregation of the Most High ever. So whomever those bloodlines are on the earth right now, they will be killed off. They will not be allowed to enter the congregation of the Most High ever. Verse 2, Because they met not the children of Israel with bread and with water, but hired by Elam or Balaam against them, that he should curse them. Howbeit, our strong one turned the curse into a blessing. Verse 3. Now it came to pass, when they had heard the law, that they separated from Israel all the mixed multitude. So, once we hear the law, and we understand clearly that we're not to be mixing seed with the heathen, then we kind of understand clearly or understood that we are to separate ourselves from them. And as you are hearing this word, you understand clearly now that we are not to be lying down, making babies and making marriages with strangers. It is not to be done. Now, let's move down to, we're in the same chapter. Let's move down to verse 15. We'll read verse 15 through verse 27 of the same chapter, Nehemiah chapter 13. Okay? Now, verse 15 of Nehemiah chapter 13. Verse 15 reads, In those days saw I in Judah some treading the winepress on the Sabbath, and bringing in sheaves, and laden asses, also wine, grapes, and figs, and all manner of burdens, which they brought into Jerusalem on the Sabbath day. And I testified against them in the day wherein they sold victuals or food. So Nehemiah, he is observing in Judah and Jerusalem that there are people bringing all types of goods back and forth. They're buying, selling, and trading on the Most High's Sabbath day, his set apart day. The Sabbath means to cease or to rest. You're to shut everything down on the Sabbath day. Today is the Sabbath day. I'm at home. I'm at rest. Okay? The TV's not on or anything like that. Okay? No cooking on the Sabbath. All of your food is to be prepared before the Sabbath day. You're not to do anything. You can fast. You can study, you can rest, i.e. sleep, etc. But you're to meditate upon the words of the Most High on the Sabbath day. You're not to be out running around your town, buying, selling, cooking food, having sex. None of these things on the Most High's set apart day. Okay, so Nehemiah is witnessing that the house of Israel is doing all manner of things contrary to the Most High's law on the Sabbath day, and he testified against them. He is contending with them, letting them know that these things ought not to be done. Verse 16, there dwelt men of Tyre also therein, which brought fish and all manner of ware, stuff to sell, goods, and sold on the Sabbath day unto the children of Judah and in Jerusalem. So we are buying stuff from the people of Tyre and other strangers on the Sabbath day. We are not to buy or sell anything on the Sabbath day. Verse 17, then I contended with the nobles of Judah and said unto them, what evil thing is this that ye do, and profane the Sabbath day? So Nehemiah is contending with the leadership, okay, because the only time we're going to go astray is when the leadership is run amok of the Most High's law. So he is letting them know clearly. You can read here, what evil thing is this that ye do? It is an evil thing. It is a wicked thing for you to be selling anything on the Most High Sabbath, to be working on the Most High Sabbath, to be buying anything on the Most High Sabbath, cooking food on any of these things. You are profaning the Sabbath of the Most High, and this thing ought not to be done. Now, verse 18, did not your fathers thus, and did not our strong one bring all this evil upon us and upon this city? Yet ye bring more wrath upon Israel by profaning the Sabbath. So Nehemiah is letting the house of Judah know, letting the house of Israel know, did your fathers do all these same manner of abomination? Did your fathers not walk contrary to the Most High's law and they got punished for it? Then why then are you doing this, to bring the wrath of the Most High upon the house of Israel for profaning his Sabbath? That is the contention that Nehemiah had with the leadership and the elders of Israel at this time. Okay, verse 19, and it came to pass that when the gates of Jerusalem began to be dark before the Sabbath. All right, let's stop there. Someone has told you that the day begins in the morning. The day begins once it gets dark in the evening. The evening and the morning was the first day. There was darkness upon the deep, then the Most High caused light to appear. Light can be also synonymous with wisdom. So the dark was first and then the light. So when it gets dark, right now, the Sabbath is almost over. It's currently 7:29 p.m. on the East Coast. So it won't get dark for another 2 hours, about 9:30 or so it actually gets dark. So when it gets dark, that will be the end of the Sabbath. And that's when the new day begins once it gets dark. So as we read here, it says, it came to pass, verse 19, and it came to pass that when the gates of Jerusalem began to be dark before the Sabbath, okay, which means the Sabbath starts in the evening. So yesterday was Friday. Friday evening, right before it got dark, was before the start of the Sabbath. Once it got dark Friday night, the Sabbath actually began. And from dark Friday night to dark Saturday night, that is the Sabbath. Once it becomes dark on Saturday night, the Sabbath is over. All right, let's go back to verse 19. And it came to pass that when the gates of Jerusalem began to be dark before the Sabbath, I commanded that the gates should be shut, and charged that they should not be opened till after the Sabbath, which means Nehemiah had those gates shut before the Sabbath. That would say Friday about 7 o'clock or so before it got dark. And he would not open those gates until after the Sabbath. That means it's being opened up late Saturday night after it's dark. All right. that it should not be open until after the Sabbath. And some of my servants set I at the gates, that there should no birds be brought in on the Sabbath day. So what Nehemiah had to do, he had to place guards, he had to place sentries at the gates of Jerusalem to ensure that no stranger would bring any wares, would bring any products for us to purchase. Okay, and he also had to ensure that the house of Israel, Judah, and the rest of them down in Jerusalem would not be breaking the Most High Sabbath by buying anything from those who were treading back and forth, polluting the Most High Sabbath on the Sabbath day. Verse 20. So the merchants and sellers of all kinds of ware lodged without Jerusalem once or twice. So all the strangers, the people of Tyre, etc., who could care less about the Sabbath and didn't keep it, what they would do is they would bring all their merchandise to be sold to the children of Jerusalem, to Judah and the rest of them, and they would pretty much hang out outside of our gates, okay, because Nehemiah had the gates locked and he had sentries ensuring that no one came in there with any burdens on the Sabbath day. So what these strangers were doing, the strangers, they would have all their goods with them and they would come and try to hang out at the gate. Okay? Now, verse 21. Then I testified against them and said unto them, why lodge ye about the wall? If ye do so again, I will lay hands on you. From that time forth came they no more on the Sabbath. So Nehemiah had to come outside the gate and ask these strangers, why are you hanging about this wall? Why are you hanging about this gate? If you continue to do this, I'm going to have to lay hands on you. I'm going to have to break you off. All right? And so once he threatened them in that fashion, that is when they stopped coming with their goods on the Sabbath day. Okay, so I want you to understand how serious this is. All right? Now, verse 22. And I commanded the Levites that they should cleanse themselves, and that they should come and keep the gates, to sanctify the Sabbath day. Remember me, O Yah, concerning this also, and spare me according to the greatness of thy mercy. Verse 23. In those days also saw I Israelites. The house of Israel are Israelites. The house of Israel are not Jews. Okay? In those days also I saw Israelites that had married wives of Ashdod, of Ammon, and of Moab. So in these days, in the days of Nehemiah, what the house of Israel is not doing, they are not keeping the Most High's law. So I want that to be clearly understood. So Nehemiah is dealing with the house of Israel buying and selling on the Sabbath day. This is in violation of the Most High's law. And now in the same days, during these same times, you have the men of Israel who have married strange wives. So now he's already addressed us not keeping the Sabbath. Now he's going to address us marrying these strange women. Verse 23 once again, in those days also, I saw, or in those days also saw I Israelites. The word Jews are in my book. I saw Israelites that had married wives of Ashdod, of Ammon, and of Moab. And their children spake half in the speech of Ashdod, and could not speak in the Israelite language, but according to the language of each people. So, what you have here is men of the house of Israel marrying strange women. Now, we all know that a woman raises the child. All right? So, the children of Israel, or the mixed children, could not speak the language of their father. They could not speak the Israelite language. They spoke the language of their mother. So if they're speaking the language of their mother, they would more than likely be closer to their mother's culture, their mother's language, and certainly to the belief system or to the idols of their mother and not that of their father. Okay, so this is the contention Nehemiah is dealing with right here as far as the house of Israel walking contrary to the Most High's law. Now, verse 25. And I contended with them, and cursed them, and smote certain of them, and plucked off their hair, and made them swear by Yah, saying, Ye shall not give your daughters unto their sons, nor take their daughters unto your sons, or for yourselves. So Nehemiah, being the governor, made clear to those who have just returned from the captivity, number one, you are not to take any of these strange wives. That's number one. You are not to take any of their daughters for your sons, and you're not to give your daughters unto their sons. Okay? So he's making this plain that this thing ought not to be done. Verse 26. Listen to this carefully. Did not Solomon, king of Israel or governor of Israel, sin by these things? So, to marry those of the other nation is a sin. Nehemiah, the governor, is making it plain that this thing ought not to be done, and that Solomon sinned in doing this thing. All right, so let me reread that again. Verse 26. Did not Solomon, king of Israel, sin by these things? Yet among many nations was there no king like him, who was beloved of his strong one, and Yah made him king over all Israel. Nevertheless, even him did outlandish women cause to sin. So, we're not to marry these outlandish women, these women of these other nations, because they will cause us to sin. Do you understand that? So, instead of you marrying them and then allowing them to cause you to sin like the Most High have commanded us not to do it, your best defense against this is not to marry them at all. For it's a sin to do so, because if you do so, you're going to end up serving their idols, and you're going to be turned away from the Most High. The Most High warned us from the jump that we should not do this, and the fact that if we were to do this, exactly what the result of that would be. So you should know clearly that you are not to marry the daughter of strangers, and you should not give your sons to their daughters, nor your daughters to their sons. Verse 27. This is the last verse. Shall we then hearken unto you to do all this great evil, to trespass against our God and marrying strange wives? So, once again, this is to make clear that we are not to do this evil and to marry strange wives. We should hearken unto the words of our prophets. We should hearken unto the words of the Most High, and we shall not walk contrary to this instruction and do this great evil and marry strange wives. So this is to go or to be in conjunction, to add. This is to add to the lessons that was done previously pertaining to marrying of strange women, strange wives. This is to reiterate to you that the wisest of all our governors, the wealthiest of all of our governors, Governor Solomon, he transgressed in this thing by going against the law, statutes, judgments, and precepts of the Most High. And he married strange women. And in so doing, his heart was led astray, and he served the gods of his wives, the idols of his wives. And the Most High's anger was kindled against Solomon, and he took the kingdom from his son Rehoboam. So, you are not to marry strange women. That is to make it clear. That concludes this lesson. Governor Solomon sinned with strange wives. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. Being with these strange women, marrying these strange women, and having strange children, this is the kind of thing that can get you to javelin. Who wants the javelin? Peace, Israel, and Yah bless.